I'm Kyle, and this is 30 Minutes Plus 2. Welcome to 30 Minutes Plus 2. Thanks for sticking in there with me. I am trying to learn some of this as we go. I have figured out how to edit a few things here and there, and hopefully you like the new intro more than you like the other one. Although I kind of am fond of that paper intro, I might have to bring that one back. But anyway, thanks for hanging in there with me. So on this episode, as I told you before, I'm going to go ahead and try and talk about some of the seasons that have already gone by, and I'm going to do that to accomplish a couple of things. One, it's going to help me put some content out there, and two, it's going to help me kind of get a feel for how I want this show to go. So please bear with me and hang in there for a little bit longer because I am still practicing at this. So if you have any suggestions or anything that you'd like to see, please let me know and maybe we can go ahead and incorporate that. But for right now, I'm just going to kind of take a shot in the dark here. I chose the 2009 Supercross season because it is one of my favorite Supercross seasons. Like I said before, motocross is really where my heart is. But because it is getting close to Supercross season, it seemed to make a little more sense to me to go ahead and start there. Plus, because it's old, everybody sort of already knows what happened, and it's kind of a good way to get my feet wet, I'm hoping. So with that having been said, let's talk about the 2009 season. So the 2009 season started out with Chad Reed trying to defend his #1 plate from 2008. He won that plate with 9 wins in 2008, and he's now the defending champion. Of course, James Stewart had been out in 2008 having a knee injury worked on, but he was back and he was healthy, and now we were finally going to get to see the Chad Reed versus James Stewart battle that we all really wanted to see. So it started at day 1, of course, and James Stewart gets the hole shot. And Chad Reed had a great start as well. Chad Reed made some quick work on Josh Grant to get into second, and then he finally made a sweet pass on James Stewart to take over the lead. Unfortunately, what happened for both of them is James Stewart was cutting to the inside right before a whoop section when he missed a shift and took them both out. Wow, insane. So after this, unfortunately, James Stewart could never really get going again, and he ended up having to DNF that race. His results show a 19th place, so 2 points. Not great for the fastest man on the planet. However, one thing that happened that night that was pretty cool was that Josh Grant got his first and only Supercross win that night, and he did it with a tough block cover stuck in his rear brake. That was pretty awesome. So here he was flying around the track, gets this tough block cover stuck in his rear brake. Right at the end of the race, he starts slowing down, and he almost gets past, but he pulls off the win, smoke and all, with that tough block cover stuck in his rear brake.
Here it is! The checkered flag!
So things were looking pretty bad for James Stewart coming into round 2 at Phoenix. But then something happened. Stewart won again and again, and he won some more over and over again. In fact, he won 7 in a row. So James Stewart was making very short work of this points deficit that he had been in, and he was really starting to put it to Chad Reed. When in Indianapolis, James Stewart crashes not once but twice. After he crashed the first time, he made a sweet pass for the lead.
7 is right there! Here comes James! Listen to the crowd!
But ended up throwing it away. This led to Chad Reed getting that win finally, his first win of 2009. So now they were tied in points going into Daytona. And if you listen to Ricky Carmichael likes to say the series starts in Daytona. Unfortunately, they both had some bad luck in that first turn at Daytona. What's interesting about what happened in that first turn in Daytona, though, is that it set both of them back. And old J-Law led for quite a while, actually. Unfortunately, he was really no match for the hard-charging Reed, who had a championship on the line. So they ended up leaving Daytona with James Stewart 11 points behind. As they rolled into New Orleans, they both got a great start that night. Unfortunately, Reed just didn't have anything for Stewart that night, and Stewart typically just sort of pulled away. So in St. Louis, Chad Reed had gotten a great start, and James Stewart was about in the middle of the pack. But as is so awesome to watch sometimes, James Stewart just pulled right through the pack, bringing people along with him. He finally makes a pass for the lead, and things are really starting to get interesting. But unfortunately, James misses a shift, and then this.
And James Stewart is down. James Stewart.
So Chad Reed goes on to win the night. So as racing started in Toronto, Chad Reed just sort of wasn't on his game that night. I personally think that he was thinking too much about points. I think he knew that if he'd gotten the win that night, it would have put him in a position where he probably could have cruised to second place in all of these races and walked away with the championship. Unfortunately, because his mind wasn't on the race that night, he just didn't really have anything for James Stewart. Stewart just pulled away and there was no catching him. So Jacksonville was the race that defined the season, at least for me anyway. This was the point where their rivalry had really come to a head. They had had some issues in practice, and you could tell that there was something coming up to the surface, and it was going to be great. So that night, Reed and Stewart start 1 and 2, and they are battling. They were trading the lead back and forth, 3 or 4 times, and they were just having a great night. And then, about halfway through, maybe a little later, Chad Reed unfortunately goes off of the track. There was no coming back from this. There was no way that he was going to be able to chase down Stewart that night, and I think he kind of knew it. So he goes for it. He ends up second, and while Stewart is on his victory lap, Chad Reed comes up to him, and then it happened. The infamous neck grab. We may never know what it is that they were actually talking about. Recently on Chasing the Dream on Chad Reed and James Stewart, Reed claims that he was mad at James for cross jumping. We may never know, but we did know that Seattle was going to be awesome. So in Seattle that year, there really wasn't much in the way of the story of the Chad Reed versus James Stewart, although there was something that did happen in Seattle that is pretty noteworthy. That night, Chad Reed goes down in the first corner, and James Stewart got a horrible start. Alessi hole shot, and he led for a while. But what we were treated to that night in Seattle was something that we were going to see time and time and time again. Yep, that was RV's very first Supercross win on a 450. Something, again, we were going to see a lot of. But the bigger story, I guess, from Seattle is the fact that because of Chad Reed's crash in the first turn, he'd now handed over the points lead to James Stewart. So in Salt Lake City, the second to last round, they had a great night. Chad Reed hole-shotted. Everything was looking good for him. He thought he was going to go on to take the win. James Stewart got an okay start, and they started to battle, again, swapping the lead back and forth. It was great. The kind of stuff that people like me love to see. Great racing. But there was an incident that happened that night. And it's kind of funny because when I look back on it, I always thought it was a lot worse when I saw it in real time. And now that I have some perspective and I can look back at it, it doesn't look as bad as all that. But here's what happened. Yes, that was Kyle Chisholm, teammate to James Stewart, and lapped Ryder. Pretty aggressive move if you ask me. But he ultimately was black flagged, so I'd say it was an aggressive move. But again, when I watch it now, it doesn't seem so bad. He didn't really T-bone him. I've certainly seen worse takeouts than that. It wasn't even a takeout. Reed didn't even go down. But I remember at the time thinking that that was a huge deal. So ultimately, James Stewart went on to win the night that night. That takes us to Vegas, the last round of the season. Things were looking pretty good for James Stewart. If Chad Reed had won, all James Stewart would have needed to get was a 4th place in order to clinch the championship. Everyone was pretty sure that he was going to be able to do that. James Stewart hole shot that night with Ryan Villopoto right behind him. Stewart was looking pretty good until Villopoto made a pass for the lead. Stewart still looked all right until a few laps went by, and then it started to look like maybe he was having a mechanical. He started to roll the jumps, and he started acting kind of funny, like something was wrong. And everybody kind of thought, is this it? Is this how Stewart's championship season is going to end, with him not getting it because of a mechanical? Well, it turns out that I'm pretty sure James Stewart knew what was going to happen. He wanted Reed to make the pass. He knew that if Reed would pass him and eventually go on to take the win, all he had to do was get a 4th place. James Stewart knew that he could ride around in 3rd and still win the championship, so he wanted Reed to pass him. Funny thing happened though. Chad Reed refused to make the pass on him. Chad Reed wanted to take him down at the worst possible time. When that didn't happen, he just tried to take him out at all. So unfortunately, this didn't work. James Stewart was able to keep it on 2 wheels, get back on the track. Reed was long gone at this point, so there was nothing more that Reed could do to him, and all Reed could do was try and ride his race and hope for the best. James Stewart also just wanted to ride his race and hope for the best, but James Stewart was in a much better position to do that. James Stewart was in a championship position, and there was no way he was going to give that up. Ultimately, Ryan Villopoto went on to win that night, and James Stewart went on to win the championship. It was a fantastic season. If you get a chance, I'd really like for you to go and check out some of those old videos, some of the best close racing that we've seen between those two. I hope you enjoyed this video. I enjoyed making it. Give me some suggestions. Tell me how I can make it better. Tell me some of the content that you would like to see. Would you like to see some overseas stuff? Would you like me to concentrate more on motocross? Would you like me to try and do more of these? Any help you can provide would be great. I want to get better at this, and I'm pretty sure you guys want me to get better at this. So help me out. Shoot me a comment. Let me know what you think, and we'll try and make this something that works. And please remember to like and subscribe. Tell your friends. Let's grow this community.